Hey everyone, here's something that's been blowing my mind lately. All these huge agencies and organizations that used to treat crypto like it was radioactive, yeah, they've completely flipped the script. They went from being super aggressive and scared to touch anything crypto related to now basically shouting at us, hey everyone, pay attention. This is your moment. Get into the crypto space right now. And the craziest part, this entire transformation happened in what, like a year? Maybe 12 months tops. Now you've got every single heavyweight organization, every major agency lining up to say the exact same thing. Crypto is our top priority. This technology is literally shaping what comes next. They're ready to innovate. They're ready to embrace it. Let me start with the SEC because there's some really juicy news about Hester Peirce that just dropped. Get this, SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce said tokenization is a huge focus now for the agency and urged stronger protections for financial privacy at the DC Privacy Summit. Oh, and that's not even all of it. We got another bombshell announcement too. Listen to this. SEC Chair Paul Atkins saying that crypto, digital assets, and tokenization are job one for the SEC, focusing on building a strong framework to attract innovators back to the US. So listen, the SEC right now, they're going all in on crypto, like fully committed to crypto and the entire tech ecosystem around it, especially everything connected to tokenization. But guess what? The SEC isn't doing this alone. The CFTC is right there with them. And here's what makes this really interesting. The CFTC and SEC are practically joined at the hip these days. They're building this coordinated roadmap for crypto together. Now here's where it gets really cool, because NASDAQ just jumped into the picture. Check this out. Enhancing market integrity and advancing tokenization with NASDAQ and the US Commodity Futures Trading Commission. If you look further down, you'll see that NASDAQ has launched a new 3-part webinar series designed to explore the evolving landscape of crypto markets. So NASDAQ's hosting this whole thing, and then you've got Caroline DePam from the CFTC coming in to participate as well. Retry. All right, so here's what's happening. They're getting into how regulators and market operators are collaborating to build resilient, trustworthy digital asset markets. Let me walk you through the major points they're hitting on. The CFTC is applying proven futures market standards to tokenize assets to streamline regulation while preserving core protections. Federal coordination is accelerating U.S. crypto competitiveness with new opportunities in retail products and tokenized collateral. The NASDAQ and, of course, the CFTC are modernizing surveillance and compliance infrastructure to build resilient, trustworthy digital asset markets. So what's the game plan? They're pushing to, quote, streamline without sacrificing safeguards, accelerate U.S. crypto competitiveness, apply existing roles, then uplift, operationalize tokenized collateral, enable retail crypto products on futures exchanges, coordinate across agencies on top of everything else. This is all happening under that joint initiative with the SEC and CFTC working together. Invest in talent and transformation. Modernize surveillance systems. Conclusion. NASDAQ's coming in hot as the trusted partner everyone's counting on. Look, the end game is clear. Modernize capital markets across the board. We're talking about transforming every single market you can think of. And the way they're pulling this off, getting the CFTC and NASDAQ in the same room, working hand in hand to make it all happen. All right, so check this out. This is where it gets absolutely nuts. Take yourself back to March of this year when NASDAQ just casually drops the bombshell that their plans to launch a 24-hour trading platform based around equities. This is on an equities exchange in the second half of 2026, pending regulatory approval. Now, given everything we're seeing unfold right now, that regulatory approval is probably getting fast-tracked as we speak. What's genuinely mind-blowing here is the concept of 24-hour trading actually becoming a thing. If I'm remembering correctly, they were zeroing in on 24-5 when this first got announced. But getting to that full 24/7 schedule, that's still out of reach unless they fully commit to blockchain innovation. So what's the strategy? Run the trial, work out all the kinks, and then what do you think happens next? Boom, 24/7 trading becomes the new normal. We've got Vlad Tenev from Robinhood already breaking it down for us. Pulling off 24/7 is literally impossible without plugging into these cutting-edge technologies. The old infrastructure we've been relying on, it's just not built to handle demands like this. But wait, because the plot thickens. Zoom ahead to September 8th when this brand new development surfaces. NASDAQ has filed with the SEC to tokenize stocks, letting investors trade equities either traditionally or on-chain with full shareholder rights. Starting to connect the dots, whether they're shooting for 24 to 5 or pushing toward 24 to 7, the strategy is crystal clear. Get everything operating on-chain. They're fully committing to these new technologies as the foundation for making this entire vision happen. So check this out. When we really break down what's happening right now, there's this video. I literally just dropped content about the IMF basically spelling out the future. The IMF has gone on record confirming what's headed our way. Everything's going on-chain. We're talking about everything transitioning on-chain in a seriously major way. Now, when we loop back to giants like the NASDAQ, you know just how vital the NASDAQ is to how traditional markets actually function. The NASDAQ is hungry to tokenize. They're actively pursuing ways to plug into these emerging technologies. They're pushing hard to make markets run 24 to 5, which is exactly where things stand as we roll into 2026. What comes after that? Well, they're experimenting with breakthrough technologies. This is coming directly from Subjective Views. NASDAQ CEO describing blockchain and AI as an unstoppable force that's coming. The IMF already put their stamp on this. Now you've got the NASDAQ raising the red flag with the same exact warning. Take a listen to this.
You know, we've thought a lot about what's been happening with this technology and where it's going. And as you think about the last 20 years or 15 years, the world had to deal with an economic shock of the financial crisis that resulted in most of the developed world and the developing world building out resiliency, building out institutions, putting a lot of, I would say, gates in the gears to make it so that we could have more safety and more security in the financial markets and in the economies. But we have this technology that's an unstoppable force that's coming. And I would say that at this point, with that level of transformation from this incredible capability that's on our doorstep, we have to move to a time of agility and adaptability.
Yes. Absolutely.
And so we have to look at what's made us so resilient. There are a lot of things. I mean, I will point to the US markets for a second. I mean, we are hyper resilient as a system. The US equity markets, we're all interlinked, we're networked, we have failures, we've had mistakes, and so we've all figured out how to make that resiliency work and handle an immense amount of volumes. You're seeing huge volumes and huge shocks in the system, and they're all being handled and absorbed. So that resiliency is there. But now it's a time to say, okay, on that basis of that foundation, what do you really need to have to remain resilient while becoming adaptable? Because that adaptability, whether it's digital assets or AI, adaptation is happening. And so if the institutions aren't prepared for it, or a country's not prepared for it, and they're calcified in their views, they will be left behind. But if they say, okay, I want to have this base and make it so that we have a resilient base, and then we change our policies. We think differently about regulation. We think differently about taking down some of the gates, whether it's state regulation for us and zoning, or whether it's country regulation in the EU that's holding us back from allowing this new technology to take force, and thinking about education, thinking about all the things that as a region or as a country really need to change. I personally think that we're at this cusp of this moment, and that leadership's critical to making sure that it's successful and it's propagated around the world.
And this is precisely why we never stop zooming out to see the full picture, right? We're sitting here watching the actual foundation being laid under our whole financial system to make room for and bring in these new technologies. The tech's not in development anymore. It's already sitting right here. The infrastructure is already up and running. Ripple's put together this amazing infrastructure that's just waiting to be utilized. The only thing we're sitting around for now is watching these heavyweight names plug in and actually launch with this tech. And they're gearing up to do it right now. It's looking like a whole bunch of this is going operational in 2026. Cities firing up their crypto custody platform in 2026. The NASDAQ's aiming to launch their 24.5 trading system in 2026. Robinhood and major players like Robinhood are jumping into the game in 2026 as well. And here's what's wild. NASDAQ's also linking up with Ripple on top of everything. Adina Friedman, the one who was just talking, the chair and CEO of NASDAQ, she's actually heading to Ripple too. This dropped back in July, and she's going to be unpacking the future of our financial system, which we know full well is getting built on DLT and blockchain. What digital assets and blockchain can actually do, where tokenization's headed, and these next-gen technologies. And what's truly bonkers about all this is we're watching the XRP ledger already pulling in serious adoption across all these tokenization initiatives. $365 million plus change, ticking up almost 5% through the last 30 days. But now peek at the RWA 30-day transfer volume. It just busted through $600 million, exploding over 80% in the last 30 days. This is straight up remarkable. Stablecoins are popping off too in a massive way, looking at 30-day transfer volume skyrocketing 80+% to $343 million. So when we pull back and consider these serious discussions, and even when we're looking at Ripple, this deserves your full attention because I'm pretty confident we're going to be getting more from Adina eventually. But really, we're watching live as these networks and these projects like XRP, the whole ecosystem around them is insanely ready right now. These heavyweight institutions are making their entrance. And honestly, I believe it's just a waiting game at this point before we catch major forces like the NASDAQ actually firing up on public blockchains to hook into these digital rails. Okay, so look, this isn't going to be a one-horse race. You know what I mean? We're heading toward a multi-chain future for sure. But here's what I think. Ripple and XRP, they're absolutely crushing it right now. They're way out in front. And hey, remember that bombshell video from September? The one where we learned about NASDAQ filing with the US SEC to tokenize stocks? This is massive. Shout out to Altcoin Daily for that one. I'm pretty sure that clip is still fresh in your minds. But guess what? I'm throwing it back on screen right now because you need to hear what Adina has to say about this whole situation. Listen to this.
You want to tell people what?
You think we should?
Yeah.
Okay. So, so this morning we announced that we're going to be bringing tokenization into our markets. So making sure that equities are tokenized and traded on market, in the markets, not in a side sleeve, but actually in the core markets.
So the eventual goal, or is it today? 24/7, 365 equities, just let it rip constantly.
I mean, I think we are all moving in that direction. We announced several months ago that we're moving to 24/5, so we're kind of moving that way.
So Saturday and Sunday,
not for equities yet. I think that we have to. We're walking before we run, but I think that getting to 24/5 is a major advancement for the U.S. equities markets. And then on top of that, now with tokenization, if we can introduce that also into the markets, it allows us to really think about streamlining the post-trade processing, bringing and modernizing elements of the markets that have a lot of friction. We are hyper resilient and we're hyper scaled. We manage, like today, we had 95 billion messages come into our systems today, and we had a median, return time of 20 microseconds from order to trade. We handle like 3 million messages a second. It's hugely scaled. But then at the same time, once that trade occurs, there's a different process. And then the post-trade process, as we know, is an area where tokenization really shines. And really cutting down the friction, managing capital flows across the global ecosystem, and really bringing that capability into the markets is going to be the next.
I'm curious to get your reaction to this. There's this very famous curve, which is like you get this early font of insanity, and then there's the trough of disillusionment, and then you grow through. And does it seem like crypto is actually in blockchain? It's finally real. It's like there's real companies doing real things, stable coins, what Sachs did with the Genius Act.
Well, I actually want to point to that because, honestly, having regulators who want to work on bringing it into the mainstream and want to create the rules of the road is such a refreshing thing, because I think that it allows us all to understand how we can operate within a world where there are tenets of investor protection. The technology is going to have things we can and can't do, but also being forward-thinking and forward-leaning and how the technology is going to be applied is going to be critical. So we're very excited about the fact that we finally have this convergence of regulation between the traditional markets, the digital markets. How do we bring it all together to, frankly, advance all markets? And we're very, very excited about that.
So the stuff she just revealed in that clip, this is where you need to pause and really absorb it. NASDAQ handles 95 billion transactions every single day. Let that number marinate for a minute. All those trades, they're headed straight for these networks eventually. Here's where it gets interesting. She talked about launching 24/5 trading initially. That's their warm-up phase, getting comfortable with the system. Then they're gunning for 24/7 non-stop trading. Now here's the reality check. Pulling off something like that is flat out impossible without blockchain backing it up. And we're not dealing with some lockdown private ledger situation. You need public blockchains to actually execute this vision. We're literally standing at ground zero of this gigantic transformation. You have to comprehend the sheer volume that's about to crash into these markets. Wait, let me rephrase that. The tsunami heading for these networks from 2026 onwards. The titans of industry are assembling their pieces on the board right now. What's our move? Stay calm and watch it unfold. Look, I hear you. Those words, be patient, probably make your eyes roll at this point. But the truth is staring us in the face. A ton of projects in this ecosystem got selected behind closed doors already. My gut tells me Ripple and XRP are steering the ship into the future. November 4th and 5th, those dates have me buzzing because they're going to be absolutely pivotal. We're finally getting the inside scoop from behemoths like NASDAQ on their precise blueprint and how they're making moves. But stock tokenization isn't coming. It's already live right now. We've got $660 million sitting tokenized on-chain right now. Sounds like a lot, right? But honestly, that's like finding a few pennies under your couch cushions compared to what's coming. We are so early, it's not even funny. And here's what gets me excited. We don't even have to do anything except sit back and watch these massive institutions finally press go. They're already prepping behind the scenes. September, that month was absolutely insane. The SEC literally filed with NASDAQ to start tokenizing stocks, like actual stocks. Let that sink in for a second. I'm telling you, it's only a matter of time before the floodgates open. Because what we're seeing now, this isn't the real deal yet, not by a long shot. I'm sitting here waiting for the moment when genuine, heavyweight, institutional money comes crashing into these networks like a tidal wave. And when I say money, I mean trillions, plural. That kind of money that makes your head spin. So yeah, that's where we're at. Pretty wild times ahead if you ask me. If this got your gears turning, do me a solid and hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and definitely turn on those notifications because I'm dropping free content regularly and you don't want to miss what's next. Appreciate you watching. See you soon. Peace.